Welcome, and let the world grow soft and quiet all around you. As you settle in, and let your breathing slow gently down on its own, imagine drifting upward from the earth on a calm and moonlit night, rising slowly toward that pale and familiar light, beginning an unhurried tour of 100 quiet facts about the moon. This is not a tour meant to startle or excite, but a gentle invitation to wonder softly and to drift toward sleep. There is nothing at all you need to hold on to tonight. Just let these slow words wash over you, one quiet fact at a time, as you sink a little deeper into rest. The first fact is that the moon is the Earth's only natural satellite, a quiet companion world of rock and dust that circles slowly around us, keeping us gentle company through every night, and it remains by far the brightest and the most familiar object in all of our dark evening sky, softly lighting the sleeping world below with its calm and borrowed glow. The second fact is that the moon is the fifth largest moon in the whole of our solar system, and it is unusually big when compared to the small planet it orbits, so large in fact that the Earth and the moon are sometimes gently described together as a kind of double world, two round companions turning slowly through the dark side by side. The third fact is that the moon measures about 3,470 kilometers across, which is a little more than 1/4 of the width of the Earth itself, making it a modest world by cosmic measure, and yet still wide enough that its rolling plains and mountains would take many long and patient days to cross on foot. The fourth fact is that the moon drifts at an average distance of about 384,000 kilometers from the Earth, so far away that its soft light takes a little over 1 full second to reach your upturned eyes, arriving gently, always a moment old, a quiet delay you could never notice as you gaze up into the calm night. The fifth fact is that the moon is thought to have been born from a tremendous collision, when a young planet roughly the size of Mars, which scientists have gently named Theia, struck the newborn Earth about 4.5 billion years ago, in the earliest and most violent chapter of our world's very long and slowly unfolding story. The sixth fact is that this great impact flung an enormous cloud of molten rock and glowing debris out into orbit around the wounded Earth, and over time all of that scattered material slowly gathered itself together under its own soft gravity, cooling and settling patiently into the round and quiet moon that we know and love so well today. The seventh fact is that this gathering may have happened surprisingly quickly, perhaps within only a few thousand or a few million years, a mere blink of an eye in cosmic time, as the ring of hot debris drew itself gently inward, clumping together piece by piece until at last a single new world had formed there, warm and glowing in the dark. The eighth fact is that we believe this gentle story of the moon's birth in part because the rocks of the moon and the rocks of the Earth share a remarkably close and matching chemistry, so alike in their deep composition that the two worlds must surely have been shaped from very much the same material mingled together long ago in that ancient and formative collision. The ninth fact is that in its earliest days the young moon hung far, far closer to the Earth than it does now, looming very large across the primitive sky, and it has been slowly drifting outward and away from us ever since, a gentle and unhurried retreat that continues quietly to this very night, moment by patient moment. The 10th fact is that the moon has almost no atmosphere to speak of at all, only the very faintest whisper of scattered atoms clinging thinly to its surface, so that its sky is always perfectly black, even in the brightest glare of day, and the stars never twinkle there, but shine down instead with a steady, silent, and unwavering light. The 11th fact is that because the moon is so much smaller and lighter than the Earth, the pull of its gravity at the surface is only about 1/6 of what you feel here at home, so that a person standing there would feel wonderfully light, able to rise into slow and floating leaps with the gentlest and most effortless push of the foot. The 12th fact is that the moon is not a perfect sphere, but is very slightly stretched into a soft egg-like shape, with one end bulging gently toward the Earth, drawn out over the long ages by the steady and patient pull of our planet's gravity, tugging quietly and endlessly upon the near side of its faithful companion. The 13th fact is that deep within the moon there lies a small core of iron, only partly molten and quite modest in size compared to the great churning heart of the Earth, and it is one reason why the moon has cooled so thoroughly over the ages, growing quiet and still where our own world remains warm and slowly stirring inside. The 14th fact is that the moon is far less dense than the Earth, for it holds much less heavy metal deep inside, and this lightness is yet another gentle clue pointing back to the great impact, when the outer, lighter layers of rock were flung into orbit, while the heavier iron stayed behind, sinking down into the depths of the Earth. The 15th fact is that in its fiery youth the entire surface of the moon may have been covered by a vast and glowing ocean of molten rock, a deep sea of liquid magma that slowly cooled and hardened over many long ages, forming at last the pale and ancient crust upon which the soft moonlight now so gently falls. The 16th fact is that the young moon was once a place of volcanoes and slow-flowing lava, and it may even have held a faint magnetic field of its own long ago, though all of that inner fire has long since faded quietly away, leaving behind a world that is now geologically calm, and still and very deeply at rest. The 17th fact is that the crust of the moon is noticeably thicker on the hidden far side than on the near side that always faces us, a gentle lopsidedness that scientists still ponder softly, wondering how the two faces of this single quiet world came to be shaped so differently across the long and silent billions of years. The 18th fact is that the moon has cooled and grown geologically quiet over billions of patient years, its ancient volcanoes long stilled and its molten seas long hardened, so that its surface today is among the oldest and most unchanging landscapes anywhere near us, a world that keeps the deep past preserved gently upon its face, almost untouched. The 19th fact is that the moon holds only about 1 part in 81 of the Earth's total mass, a small fraction of our planet's great weight, and yet even so it is heavy enough to hold the two worlds in a slow and graceful mutual dance, each of them gently tugging upon the other as they turn together through space. The 20th fact is that we simply call it the moon, and from that ancient name flow so many soft and familiar words, like the lunar landscape and the month itself, which once measured the slow cycle of its changing phases, so that this quiet world is woven gently into the very language and rhythm of our daily lives. The 21st fact is that the surface of the moon is covered all over with craters, the round and ancient scars of countless collisions with asteroids and comets and drifting stones, gathered slowly across billions of years, so that to gaze upon the moon is to look upon one of the most patient records of impact anywhere in the whole solar system. The 22nd fact is that because the moon has no wind and no rain and no flowing water to wear its features away, those ancient craters remain almost perfectly preserved for billions of years, so that a crater formed in the earliest days of the solar system may still rest there today, its gentle rim scarcely softened by the long passage of time. The 23rd fact is that some of the moon's impact basins are truly enormous, and the greatest of them all, called the South Polacan Basin, sprawls across much of the far side, stretching some 2,500 kilometers wide and marking one of the largest and oldest impact scars to be found anywhere in the entire solar system. The 24th fact is that the dark and smooth patches you can see upon the face of the moon are called the Maria, wide and level plains of ancient volcanic rock, formed long ago when dark lava welled up from within and slowly flooded the great basins, then cooled and hardened into the calm, smooth surfaces we still see today. The 25th fact is that the word Maria simply means seas, a gentle name given by early astronomers who gazed up through their small and simple telescopes and imagined that those dark and level plains might be great oceans of water, a beautiful and poetic mistake whose lovely old names have stayed warmly with us ever since. The 26th fact is that these dark seas are found mostly upon the near side of the moon, the familiar face that is always turned toward us, while the hidden far side has very few of them at all, giving the two hemispheres of this single small world two strikingly different and quietly mysterious appearances. The 27th fact is that the pale, bright regions of the moon are called the highlands, and they are far older and much more heavily cratered than the dark seas, made of a light-colored rock that floated to the surface of the ancient magma ocean, forming the oldest crust, softly glowing across the long and silent ages. The 28th fact is that among the most beautiful of the moon's craters is one named Tycho, a young and crisp formation from which long, pale streaks of ejected material spread outward like the soft rays of a star, reaching far across the surface and glowing gently at the time of the full moon, easy to see even from your window. The 29th fact is that another lovely and well-known crater is called Copernicus, a large and terraced bowl with gently stepped walls and a cluster of small peaks at its center, formed by a great impact long ago, and standing today as one of the most striking and photographed features on the whole of the moon's near side. The 30th fact is that the moon has real mountains too, some of them rising several kilometers high, and among the tallest is a peak called Mons Huygens, standing more than 5 kilometers above the plains below, its slopes worn smooth and gentle by the slow rain of tiny meteorites over the vast and unhurried ages of time. The 31st fact is that the entire surface of the moon is blanketed in a fine, gray, powdery soil called regolith, ground down over billions of years by the endless gentle rain of tiny micrometeorites, until the upper layer became a soft and dusty covering, several meters deep in many places, resting quietly upon the harder rock below. The 32nd fact is that this lunar dust is astonishingly fine and sharp, for without any wind or water to smooth it, each tiny grain keeps its jagged little edges, and the dust clings stubbornly to everything it touches, a small and gritty nuisance that gently troubled the very first astronauts who ever walked upon that distant and silent ground. The 33rd fact is that because there is no wind and no rain upon the moon to disturb it, a single footprint pressed softly into its dust could remain there, sharp and clear and undisturbed, for many millions of years, so that the marks left by the Apollo astronauts still rest quietly upon the surface, exactly where they were first made. The 34th fact is that no human eye ever glimpsed the hidden far side of the moon until the year 1959, when a small spacecraft finally sailed around behind it and sent back the very first blurry photographs, at last gently revealing the mysterious face that our faithful companion had kept quietly turned away from us for all of human history. The 35th fact is that the far side of the moon turned out to look quite different from the near side, being far rougher and more heavily cratered, with a thicker crust and almost none of the smooth dark seas, a surprising discovery that has kept scientists gently wondering ever since about how the two faces came to differ so. The 36th fact is that the far side is often called the dark side of the moon, but this is really a gentle misunderstanding, for it receives just as much sunlight as the near side does over the course of a lunar month. It is dark only in the sense of being hidden and unseen from the Earth, never in the sense of lacking light. The 37th fact is that winding across parts of the moon's surface are long, narrow channels called rills, which are the ancient pathways where rivers of molten lava once flowed and carved their way across the land, before cooling into stone, leaving behind these quiet, curving valleys as gentle reminders of a warmer and more active time. The 38th fact is that beneath the surface of the moon there may lie great empty tunnels called lava tubes, hollow passages left behind by that same ancient flowing lava, and one day these natural caverns might offer safe and sheltered homes for future explorers, quiet and protected spaces tucked gently beneath the dusty ground. The 39th fact is that hidden within certain deep craters near the moon's poles, in shadows so permanent that sunlight has not touched them for billions of years, there lies frozen water ice, preserved in the bitter and everlasting cold, a precious and gentle discovery that could one day help sustain travelers upon that dry and dusty world. The 40th fact is that the temperatures upon the moon swing to remarkable extremes, climbing to around 120 degrees above zero in the long lunar day, and then plunging to some 130 degrees below zero in the 2-week-long night, with the shadowed polar craters colder still, among the coldest places known anywhere near us. The 41st fact is that the moon takes about 27 and 1/3 days to make one complete journey around the Earth, tracing its long and patient orbit against the distant background of the stars, drifting steadily along the same quiet path it has followed faithfully for billions of years, never hurrying and never once straying from its course. The 42nd fact is that the familiar cycle of the moon's phases, from one new moon to the next, takes a little longer, about 29.5 days, and this gentle rhythm is where our idea of the month first came from, an ancient measure of time drawn softly from the slow and changing face of the moon. The 43rd fact is that the phases of the moon are simply the changing angles at which we see its sunlit half, so that as it moves around the Earth we watch it swell gently from a thin new crescent, to a bright half, to a full round disk, and then slowly and quietly slim away again, over and over without end. The 44th fact is that the moon makes no light of its own at all, but only reflects the light of the distant sun, and it is really quite a dark world, reflecting only about 1/10 of the sunlight that falls upon it, no brighter than worn asphalt or dark stone, and yet against the black night it seems to glow. The 45th fact is that the moon always keeps the very same face turned gently toward the Earth, so that from our world we forever see only one familiar hemisphere, a quiet arrangement called tidal locking, in which the moon turns exactly once upon its own axis for each single trip it makes around us, patient and perfectly matched. The 46th fact is that this careful matching of the moon's spin to its orbit was slowly and gently created over long ages by the tides that the Earth raised within the moon itself, patiently slowing its early, faster rotation, until at last it settled into this calm and locked embrace, always showing us the same soft and steady face. The 47th fact is that although we always see the same side of the moon, a gentle rocking and wobbling of its motion, called libration, allows us over time to peek slightly around its edges, so that in truth we can glimpse a little more than half of the entire lunar surface, about 59%, from here upon the Earth. The 48th fact is that the moon's gentle gravity reaches across the empty space between us and gently pulls upon the Earth's great oceans, drawing the water into two soft bulges, one facing toward the moon and one facing away, and these slow, rising swells of the sea are what we know and feel as the ocean tides. The 49th fact is that because the Earth turns beneath these two bulges of water each day, most coastlines around the world experience 2 high tides and 2 low tides in every daily cycle, a slow and steady breathing of the sea, rising and falling gently along the shore, set softly to the quiet rhythm of the drifting moon. The 50th fact is that when the sun and the moon line up together, at the new moon and the full moon, their gravity combines to make especially large tides, gently called spring tides, while when they pull at right angles, the tides grow smaller and softer, in a calmer pattern quietly named the neap tides. The 51st fact is that now and then the moon passes directly between the Earth and the sun, casting its shadow softly upon our world and briefly hiding the sun from view, an event we call a solar eclipse, one of the most beautiful and quietly moving sights that the gentle motions of the sky can ever offer us. The 52nd fact is that these eclipses are made possible by a truly lovely coincidence, for although the sun is about 400 times wider than the moon, it also happens to lie about 400 times farther away, so that the two appear almost exactly the same size in our sky, a gentle and beautiful accident of distance. The 53rd fact is that at other times the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, so that our own planet's shadow falls softly across the full moon, and during such a lunar eclipse the moon often glows a deep and gentle red, gently lit by all the world's sunrises and sunsets bending softly around the edge of the Earth. The 54th fact is that eclipses do not happen every single month, even though the moon circles us so faithfully, because its orbit is tilted by about 5 degrees, so that the moon usually passes a little above or a little below the sun in our sky, and the three worlds align just gently now and then, rather than always. The 55th fact is that the moon's path around the Earth is not a perfect circle but a soft ellipse, so that its distance from us slowly changes, and when the full moon happens to fall at its nearest point, it appears a little larger and a little brighter than usual, a gentle sight that many people warmly call a supermoon. The 56th fact is that the moon rises roughly 50 minutes later on each successive night, slowly slipping back through the hours as it moves along its orbit, so that from one evening to the next it seems to drift gently across our schedule, sometimes greeting us at dusk, and sometimes rising softly and unnoticed in the deep and quiet middle of the night. The 57th fact is that when the moon is only a thin crescent, you can often still faintly see the whole rest of its darkened disk, glowing very dimly with a soft ashen light, and this gentle glow is called earthshine, for it is sunlight reflected first from the earth, and then softly back again from the shadowed face of the moon. The 58th fact is that the moon moves along its orbit at a little over 1 kilometer each second, a stately and unhurried pace by the standards of space, gliding silently through the dark on its long monthly journey, carried smoothly along the same gentle path, turning slowly and endlessly around the small blue world that it has always called home. The 59th fact is that because the moon always keeps the same hemisphere turned toward us, there is an entire familiar face that no one on Earth has ever seen with the naked eye across all of human history, hidden gently and forever from our direct view, revealed to us only by the patient cameras of our wandering spacecraft. The 60th fact is that the full moon nearest the autumn harvest has long been called the harvest moon, for it rises soon after sunset for several nights in a row, casting a soft and generous light that once helped farmers to gather their crops late into the evening, a gentle and practical gift from our faithful companion in the sky. The 61st fact is that the moon was the very first world beyond the Earth ever reached by something built by human hands, when in the year 1959 a small spacecraft crossed the great gulf of space and came gently down upon its surface, quietly beginning the long and wondrous age of our exploration of other worlds. The 62nd fact is that in that same year of 1959, another small robotic traveler sailed all the way around behind the moon and sent home the very first images of its hidden far side, at last gently lifting the ancient veil upon the one face our companion had always kept so patiently and completely turned away from us. The 63rd fact is that the desire to reach the moon grew into one of the great adventures of the 20th century, as nations poured their hopes and their skill into building rockets tall enough and powerful enough to carry human beings across the vast and empty distance, and safely down onto that distant, dusty, and silent shore. The 64th fact is that on a summer day in July of the year 1969, that long dream was finally realized, when the Apollo 11 mission carried the first human beings all the way down to the surface of the moon, a quiet and momentous achievement watched with wonder and held breath by millions of people all across the Earth. The 65th fact is that Neil Armstrong became the first human being ever to set foot upon another world, stepping softly down onto the powdery gray dust and gently speaking of one small step for a man, and one giant leap for all of mankind, words that have echoed warmly and gently down through all the years since. The 66th fact is that soon afterward Buzz Aldrin climbed down the ladder to become the second person to walk upon the moon, and together the two explorers spent a few short and precious hours upon the surface, gathering rocks and setting up instruments beneath the black and star-filled sky, before returning safely home to the waiting Earth. The 67th fact is that in all 6 Apollo missions landed successfully upon the moon between 1969 and 1972, and a total of just 12 human beings have ever walked upon its surface, a small and remarkable company of explorers who left their gentle footprints upon a world so very far from home. The 68th fact is that the Apollo astronauts carried home with them some 382 kilograms of moon rocks and soil, a priceless treasure of ancient stone that scientists have studied lovingly ever since, learning from it a great deal about the history of the moon, and of the Earth, and of the early solar system itself. The 69th fact is that by carefully measuring the ages of those returned moon rocks, scientists confirmed that the moon is about 4.5 billion years old, nearly as old as the Earth itself, and that its rocks preserve a gentle and unbroken record of the earliest days of our neighborhood, kept safe upon that quiet and unchanging world. The 70th fact is that the last human beings to stand upon the moon were the crew of Apollo 17 in 1972, and as Gene Cernan climbed the ladder for the final time, he became the last person to leave his footprints in the lunar dust, footprints that still rest there quietly, untouched, waiting patiently through all the years. The 71st fact is that the astronauts left many things behind upon the moon, including scientific instruments that continued to send back gentle whispers of data, and among them were special mirrors, carefully placed to reflect beams of light straight back to the Earth, still quietly serving science to this very day, long after the explorers came home. The 72nd fact is that by bouncing beams of laser light off those mirrors left upon the surface, scientists can measure the exact distance to the moon to within a few centimeters. And it is through this patient and gentle work that we have learned that the moon is slowly drifting away from us, a tiny bit farther each and every year. The 73rd fact is that on the later Apollo missions, the astronauts brought along a small electric rover, a gentle open cart that let them drive slowly across the lunar plains and explore much farther from their landing craft, rolling quietly over the dust and low hills of a world where no engine had ever hummed before. The 74th fact is that after the Apollo era came to its close, no human being returned to the moon for many decades, and yet our curiosity never truly faded, for a steady and patient stream of robotic spacecraft continued to visit, quietly mapping the surface, studying the soil, and keeping our long and gentle friendship with the moon alive. The 75th fact is that in more recent years the nation of China has sent a series of spacecraft to the moon, and in the year 2019 one of them, named Chang'e 4, became the very first craft in all of history to land softly upon the mysterious and hidden far side, gently touching down where none had ever landed before. The 76th fact is that not long after, in the year 2020, another Chinese spacecraft gathered up a small sample of lunar soil and carried it safely home to the Earth, the first fresh moon rocks to be returned in more than 40 long years, gently continuing the quiet work that the Apollo astronauts had begun so long before. The 77th fact is that in the year 2023, the nation of India gently landed a spacecraft near the moon's south pole, a region of great interest for its hidden pockets of frozen water, becoming the first mission ever to touch down so near to that cold and shadowed and quietly promising corner of the lunar world. The 78th fact is that several missions have now confirmed the gentle presence of water molecules scattered across the moon, bound up within the soil and frozen deep inside the shadowed polar craters. A discovery that has slowly and softly transformed our understanding of our companion, once thought to be entirely and completely dry beneath its dusty surface. The 79th fact is that in our own time a new era of exploration is quietly beginning, as space agencies once more prepare to send human explorers back to the moon, hoping this time to stay a while and to build gentle outposts there, opening a new and hopeful chapter in the long and patient story of our companion. The 80th fact is that the flags and instruments and gentle footprints left behind by the Apollo astronauts all still rest upon the moon today, undisturbed by any wind or rain, quietly preserved upon that silent and unchanging surface, waiting patiently in the dust as gentle monuments to the first small steps that humanity ever took upon another world. The 81st fact is that the moon does far more than merely light our nights, for its steady presence gently holds the Earth's tilt firm and stable as we journey around the sun, and this quiet, faithful influence keeps our seasons mild and regular, softly helping to make our world the calm and gentle home for life that it is. The 82nd fact is that without the moon to steady it, the tilt of the Earth's axis might wander and wobble wildly over the ages, sending our climate lurching between harsh extremes, so that in a very real and gentle way, The calm and comfortable world you rest upon tonight owes a quiet debt to its faithful and steadying companion. The 83rd fact is that the slow and patient rhythm of the tides, gently stirred by the moon across billions of years, may have played a soft and quiet role in the long story of life itself, as the rising and falling waters of ancient shorelines created gentle pools where early living things could slowly change and grow. The 84th fact is that the moon is very gradually slowing the spin of the earth, for the same tides that it raises act as the softest of brakes upon our turning world, so that our days are growing slowly longer over the ages, by only the tiniest fraction of a second across each passing century, gentle and imperceptible. The 85th fact is that long, long ago, when the moon hung much closer to us, the earth spun far more quickly than it does now, and a single day may have lasted only 6 or so hours, so that across the vast span of time our companion has quietly and gently lengthened our days into the calm rhythm we know today. The 86th fact is that the moon is slowly drifting away from the earth at a rate of about 3.5 centimeters each year, roughly the same gentle speed at which your own fingernails grow, so that little by little across the long ages, our faithful companion is very quietly and very patiently loosening its ancient embrace. The 87th fact is that this slow retreat happens as the Earth's spin gently passes a little of its energy out to the moon through the tides, nudging it into a slightly wider and higher orbit over time, a quiet and unhurried exchange that has been gently unfolding between the two worlds since the very beginning of their long shared story. The 88th fact is that because the moon is drifting slowly outward, there will come a distant age, far beyond our own time, when it will appear too small in our sky to fully cover the sun, and the perfect total eclipses we enjoy today will gently and quietly come to their end, a soft and fleeting gift of our present moment. The 89th fact is that for as long as there have been people upon the earth, the soft light of the moon has guided us gently through the darkness, lighting our paths, marking our calendars, and measuring out the quiet passage of the months, a faithful lantern in the night that has watched over every generation that has ever lived. The 90th fact is that nearly every culture across all of human history has gazed up at the moon and woven it deeply into their stories, their myths, their poems, and their songs, finding in that calm and changing face a gentle mirror for their dreams and their wonder, a shared companion for all the peoples of the earth. The 91st fact is that although old tales speak of the full moon stirring strange moods and restless nights, careful study has found no real effect of the moon upon our sleep, so you may rest easy and gently tonight, knowing that its soft and silver light asks nothing of you at all but to be quietly admired. The 92nd fact is that the moon's gentle gravity tugs not only upon the oceans, but ever so slightly upon the very land and air of the earth as well, raising soft and imperceptible tides in the solid ground and in the atmosphere, so that in truth the whole of our world breathes quietly and gently in time with the drifting moon. The 93rd fact is that the very same moon that shines softly upon you tonight is the same moon that has been gazed upon by every human being who has ever lived, by ancient sailors and shepherds and dreamers alike. A single shared and constant light connecting you gently across all the long ages to everyone who has come before. The 94th fact is that because the moon changes so little and preserves its surface so faithfully, it serves as a great and quiet memory of the early solar system, holding within its ancient craters a gentle record of events from billions of years ago, a patient library of stone that our own restless and weathered Earth has long since lost. The 95th fact is that the moon has always been, and remains still, a gentle stepping stone for our dreams of exploring the wider cosmos, the nearest of all the other worlds, close enough to reach and to know, and it beckons us softly outward, as the first quiet doorway leading gently toward all the stars beyond. The 96th fact is that for all that we have learned about it, the moon still keeps a few soft mysteries of its own, gentle questions about its birth and its two different faces that our scientists continue to ponder quietly, leaving us always with a warm and open sense of wonder whenever we look up into the calm night sky. The 97th fact is that the moon has hung faithfully above the earth through every single night of all the long history of life, watching softly and silently over the oceans and the forests and the sleeping world. A calm and constant presence that has soothed countless weary souls gently into rest, exactly as it soothes you now, tonight. The 98th fact is that the very same soft moonlight that falls upon you at this quiet moment has fallen in just the same way upon every generation that came before, upon children and elders long ago drifting off to sleep beneath its gentle glow. A light unchanged and undimmed across all the ages, shining calmly on and on. The 99th fact is that you are resting now beneath that same faithful moon, safe upon your quiet blue world, gently held within the long and patient friendship of these two companions turning slowly together through the dark, exactly where you belong, cradled softly by the calm and enduring rhythms of a universe that has watched over you all along. The 100th fact is that as you drift now into sleep, the moon goes on turning gently above you, and the tides go on breathing softly along the shore, and the whole quiet world goes on unfolding, patient and calm and endless, holding you safely through all the still hours of the night. Rest now, sleep well, and thank you for drifting with me beyond the stars.